I'm the editor of the book about Chernobyl. I did not translate, so that is a little correction. I was asked by Alexei Yablokov after the book was published originally in 2007 if I would edit the book. He said, we need to get this in English. We have nobody and we have no money. And I said, well, yeah, I'll work on it, figuring it would take about 4 months. It took 14 months. This is an old slide from the talk I gave in September, and this is a copy of the book. It was written by Alexei Yablokov and Vasily Nestorenko and Alexei Nestorenko. Next, please. As with Fukushima, this is a polar view of the world, and it shows that Chernobyl went around the entire northern hemisphere, and unless we stop the world from turning, then every single nuclear event is going to go around the entire hemisphere in which it occurs. So far, all these have been in the northern hemisphere. But you can see that Chernobyl went around Asia and reached Greenland, North America, and Canada. And also there was fallout in Africa. So when Fukushima happened, I said it's just a matter of time before we're going to have contamination worldwide. Next, please. These are just a few of the slides from the book. This shows the number of thyroid cancer cases in the Ukraine among persons from newborn to 18 years of age at the time of the meltdown, and you can see there were very few in 1986, and it continues to go up and up and up. One of the greatest concerns about Fukushima is the tremendous amount of iodine-131 that's being given off, and iodine-129, which has an extremely long half-life. We're concerned about particularly the unborn and obviously the pregnant women, because iodine-131 goes to the thyroid gland of the unborn, and you then are dealing with lifelong problems of loss of mentality and low IQ. And this is of a great significance, and I don't know what is being done worldwide as far as giving medical advice to pregnant women at this time. Next one, please. This is the estimates of the number of cancer deaths resulting from the radionuclide cesium-134, 137, and strontium-90. This is in the book, and it's been the most controversial criticism that we have received on the book. The statistics are laid out in the book very clearly. I'm not going to go through them because I would put all of you to sleep. But we know that now between about 800,000 people worldwide have died as a result of Chernobyl. A new Chernobyl book is being published this next week in the Ukraine, in Kiev, and where the estimate is now over a million. So this is the latest, bringing up to date up to 2010. Next, please. This is a trend of the mortality of Ukrainian liquidators who worked there from 86 to 87 from non-malignant diseases. Now, most of the things that the people think about as cancer as a result of the exposure to Ukraine, to the Chernobyl disaster. But we found that the commonest cause of death was heart trouble. And one of the biggest problems was brain damage in the liquidators and in their children. The book documents illnesses ranging from brain damage, cataracts cataract development in children, thyroid disease, lung disease, heart disease. Now, any woman who's had radiation for breast cancer knows about the development of heart disease. Well, it turns out that these multiple isotopes are picked up in the respiratory system, and then are circulated throughout the circulatory system, and you wind up with damage to the vessels of the blood system and the heart. Now, Bandashevsky, one of the scientists who was ultimately arrested and charged with serious crimes, was in prison for at least 4 years in Belarus, had done studies of cesium-137 on animals. He was a pathologist, and he examined the tissues of children who died, and he found that the heart disease in the children was the same, who had high levels of cesium-137, was the same as the animals that he had studied before Chernobyl. Next, please. We hear that this is radiophobia, and that people are really, the reason they are sick is because they're worried about radiation and compensation and other political problems. Well, we see the anomalies in plants that in Chernobyl. So these are birth defects in plants. So it's not just humans who've been affected that we've been able to document the effects. Next, please. These are barn swallows who have abnormal feather development. And once again, multiple systems have been studied of domestic and wild animals, birds, fish, trees, bacteria, viruses, all of them, without exception, develop changes. It's not just humans. So, and the book goes into the flora and the fauna and the human effects that we've seen as a result of Chernobyl, and which, believe me, we will see as a result of Fukushima, sadly. Next, please. This is the concentration of some of the radionuclides in fish. And you can see it. These were measured in Finland, Ukraine, Poland, the Baltic, Norway, Russia, various kinds of fish. So this is enormous fallout throughout that entire area. The greatest concentrations from the Chernobyl disaster fell in the Ukraine, Belarus, and European Russia. But the greatest amount fell outside, it fell in Europe, outside of those three countries. Next, please. This is of an enormous concern right now. This is from a Ukrainian publication, and it shows that the americium-241. This is a breakdown product of plutonium, and this is increasing in amount as time goes on. And unfortunately, americium-241 is water soluble, and therefore is picked up by plants and becomes into the food supply. Next slide, please. This shows the distribution in the year 2056. Note that this is going to go across the entire southern border of Belarus, ultimately into Poland, and ultimately into the Baltic, and down the Dnieper River into the Black Sea. The half-life of americium-241 is about 400 years. I think it's 484 years. So it takes 10 half-lives to completely disappear. So we're talking 40 centuries before this is gone. Next, please. One of the big problems in the whole situation with Chernobyl and with other nuclear problems is the agreement that was signed between the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization is to promote and protect the health of all peoples, to act as a directing and coordinating authority on international health work, and to insist in developing an informed public opinion among people on matters of health. The IAEA is quite different, to accelerate and enlarge the contribution of atomic energy to peace, health, and prosperity throughout the world. Next slide, please. Now, I'm not going to read all this word by word, but what is happening is the IAEA and the WHO have this agreement in place since 1959 that neither one can write or discuss anything without the agreement of the other. It's like having Dracula guard the blood bank. And this must cease. I was encouraged when I read today that Secretary of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, was in Chernobyl, I believe it was yesterday, and said we have to rethink this whole issue of nuclear power. And I hope that all of you will contact him and urge him to stop this agreement, because this is interfering with data. We're not getting data out of Hiroshima that we need, and indeed, I misspoke, out of Fukushima. And if you notice, Fukushima has not been on the front page of either the Washington Post or the New York Times for the last week, and we need information. We need to continue research of the Chernobyl people. We need to initiate research on the Fukushima disaster, and we need to have this information transparent and available to everyone. Now, one of the things that they did as an organization called BELRAD was to measure the levels of the radiation in food, and also measure the radiation levels in children, and make this information available. We need to have this in place now. I think that's the... Oh, this is a picture of... on the far... This side over here is Alexei Yablokov, and on the far side is Vasily Nestorenko before he died. They were standing outside the World Health Organization in Geneva saying we need to get rid of this agreement between the WHO and the IAEA. These are heroes as far as I'm concerned. I think that's the last one. Thank you.